Hello teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while since I put a video up here. I never promised consistency with this channel, let's put it that way. I was anticipating I would put more up, but I've had a pretty quiet month actually. I do have an update on just how I've changed the apartment and stuff. I'll see if I've got enough clips to make that into a vlog of some kind. But yeah, I've been getting used to work, I've been living quite a quiet life. So I've not had much to show you, and I don't want to bore you to death. And with me not wanting to bore you to death, budgeting videos are clearly the way forward. I find them interesting, is all I can tell you. You've heard me speculate about finances and things on my other channel, and I just find them interesting. So I thought I would share mine a little bit. So for anyone new to the channel who has not come over in the past with me, who maybe doesn't know my history, I am a teacher. I am from the UK originally, but I'm currently teaching in Oman in the Middle East. So I'm going to be budgeting into currencies here because I have the money I spend locally, and then I have the money that I send home for savings. So I've got a spreadsheet to help me track that. What I did, I've just been paid for my second month's salary here. The first month I was living here, I brought a lump sum into the country and I was making a lot of one-off purchases. So I didn't feel like that was a good month to sit down and be like, okay, what are my regular spends? Because it wasn't a regular month. I had intended to get down to this in the first month, but the first month is more really figuring things out and seeing, okay, well, what did I spend? Is this a realistic budget for this category and things like that? So I feel like I'm in a better place with that now. I've done a few adjustments to some of my numbers, and this is what I'm hoping to stick to. I will admit last month I wasn't really used to this. I fell off the wagon a little bit with tracking. So I want to be a bit more hardcore with it this month, and that's why I'm doing this right now. I get paid mid-month here, which I find a little bit strange. I do wish I got paid at the end of the month and everything lined up, but it doesn't, and this is how we live, so there we go. But I have just been paid. We get paid no later than the 15th, but the exact day that we get paid is not set, because if the 15th or the 14th ends up being on a weekend, the way it was this weekend, you get paid early. So we got paid on the 12th, which is as early as I think we will get paid at any point, because the most we have to do is account for a weekend or a holiday. So I haven't spent anything in terms of groceries or variable spending out of that paycheck yet, because I haven't gone to get my groceries today, because I did a little extra grocery shopping right before I got paid. So there's been no need yet. I paid some of my fixed bills, but it seemed like now was a good time to sit down with you guys and really kind of lay it out before I was sort of behind with the tracking. So I'm going to put what I'm looking at on my screen up here, I think. I'll try it. I'm going to screen grab it, and then we'll see if it's better me being a little corner down here and you seeing everything, or if I can just put it here and it makes sense. We'll see how the sizing works when I'm editing. So we're going to start up here with the income box. That's my salary, and it's any additional income I get from Oman, particularly, that I might end up having to factor in. An example of extra income, I don't get it very often, but last month I got reimbursed for the travel allowance for my extra baggage, which ended up being a bit of a thing. They tried to reimburse me on a lower rate. I submitted the receipt, and they refunded me $700 instead of £700. And I was sitting there, because if you've been with me since my last job when they were messing me around with my money and I really wasn't happy, I was expecting to really have to fight to get them to reconsider the rate, because I submitted my receipt and they had tried to charge me based on Oman Air, and I didn't fly with them, I flew with Turkish. So I was like, no, and I sent an email and they just fixed it, and I didn't quite know what to do with all my emotions. But anyway, that little side story aside, redundant words are redundant, that's what the kind of thing I would count an additional, something I get reimbursed for, something like that. So my salary at the moment is 1,300 Omani Rial per month. I get paid once a month. The reason this is 1313 is because on top of my salary, I get a 20 rial allowance for electricity, and then I get deducted 7 rial for the laundry service. And you can see this down here in my fixed bills, which we'll talk about in a minute. So this is my final amount at the end of it. You'll notice that there is no deduction in that for anything else. We do not pay income tax here. It's not part of the money system. So everything I earn, aside from the minor deductions, I receive. Right now it says send home and it's the same number as my monthly income, because once we fill in the spending, it's going to adjust that. So let's look at my fixed bills. My home internet is ridiculously expensive. I do have a piece of paper here because I had this filled in and then I was like, oh, I didn't do my video. So I printed it and then I deleted it. My home internet is very expensive here actually. It's 37 Omani Rial. I tend to, when I'm thinking about converting back in my head, I tend to double it to get the Great British Pounds, but actually with the exchange rate now, the amount is even more than that, so it's pricey. Do your own conversions, because once you get into 3 currencies, things start to become really inaccurate. So if I do to pounds and then to dollars, it's all going to go weird, because obviously exchange rates vary so much, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit with the money I send home. My phone is reasonable. It's only 6 rial a month, so I've already paid that. I'm actually going to put the actual costs in a minute. As I said, the laundry service is 7. It doesn't change month on month. That's just the cost. The electricity, I put 20 in as the full, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. And I also hired a cleaner last month because I realized, just like in Saudi, it gets really dusty. There's a few more bugs here as well, and I just want to make sure it's getting a nice deep clean regularly in a way that I'm too lazy and too tired to do myself. I can clean, I maintain cleanliness, but doing the deep cleans, I kind of hate it. So hire someone who can do it better than me. It's 10 rial for a 3-hour session. She cleans my entire apartment. She is lovely, and she comes every other week. So that's where the 20 is coming from. She comes every other Thursday. In terms of actual costs, there's very little reason for any of this to change. Technically, my home internet is 36 point something, but for the sake of it, I'm just going to round up. My phone doesn't change because it's my chosen plan. My laundry doesn't change, so I've already paid that. My electricity, they give me 20 a month, but I have a meter, because what you do is you load it, they put it into your salary. You pay on an app, and the app gives you a code that you then load onto your electricity meter. I have a meter just by my front door, and I've been keeping an eye on the account and how much it's using. And even though we were in the midst of summer, I've used between 12 and 15 rial a month, and it's only going to get cooler. I'm only going to use it less. Right now I'm still running the AC on and off, but we do have fans installed that I can switch to once it gets a tiny bit cooler, and I can start opening the windows because I've got bug mesh over all of them, so it should be okay. So I don't foresee that going up, but it may go down, and I'm pretty happy about that. So I think once we hit winter, that 20 will actually be enough to cover my laundry service as well. For now, I'm going to put the full 20. I haven't updated it yet, but it may be that I end up putting that 20 on every month and a half or so, but I'll keep it there for now. And the cleaner will not change, so we're just going to put 20 there. So that means my fixed bills for things like unchangeable things are 90 Omani Rial a month. So then we get into the variable expenses. Guys, I was really surprised how expensive groceries here were. Now, Saudi, I was expecting the prices to be about the same, and what I can't tell right now is, are groceries more expensive here, or did I move here as groceries globally got more expensive? I think it might be a little bit of both, and then again, because the exchange rate, the pound is so weak right now, everything seems so ridiculously expensive to me on top of that I don't think I've got a very good view. But initially I had 175 out of my lump sum that I brought for the first month before I got paid at all, because I knew the first few grocery shops were always going to be bigger. And then I had hoped to put about 100 towards groceries a month. But now that I'm doing it, I think about 30 a week is more realistic. So I'm going to put it at 120 for the month. I realize there aren't always 4 weeks in the month, but for the sake of the extra day or two, I can handle, I've got enough food. Transport, I do not need transport to school. We live on campus and I don't run a car. So technically I have a license. I hate driving. I haven't done it for 10 years. I would need lessons if I did. So there is an app here called O-Taxi, which is the local version of Uber, and it's very cheap because the government limits the price of petrol here. So it ends up being the equivalent of about 43, 44 pence a litre, which means the cost of transport is not so high. I'm going to put 30 real. I probably won't spend quite that much, but I'm basically accounting for a grocery trip once a week, so it costs about 1.5 real to get there and then 1.5 to get back. And then if I do a bigger trip, even if I do it every week, if I go into the city centre or something, and so I spend 5 or 6, it gives me enough leeway to do an extra trip here and there. School, I'm just putting 25 as a blanket amount. This is for things like, well, not really in school. In school, most of my costs are covered, but I have a laminator here, for example, so if I need to buy laminating film, or sometimes we've got a printer at school, but if I'm doing my planning and I want to make sure I'm ready, I might print out the master copy that I'm going to photocopy before I go into school so I can have all my stuff ready. And so if I need a cartridge to be replaced in my printer at home, then it would come out of this money. When the kids did a science experiment, I ended up hard boiling 60 eggs. And I ended up buying those. I think actually the science department would have reimbursed that if I'd submitted the receipt, but things like that, costs that come up as part of being at school. So that's 25. We'll see how much of that I use. Nails, I'm not putting anything into right now, just because I haven't found a nail tech yet, and my nails are in terrible condition at the moment. They're too short to really work on. I need to grow them and I need to take better care of my natural nail so that I can start getting it done again. So we're just holding off on that, but it will be a category later. Health and beauty, I'm just gonna put in 25. So I have not been wearing as much makeup since I got here because the humidity was so high. It wasn't just the heat. I was used to the heat to an extent in Saudi, but the humidity was so bad. I'd go out and my makeup would just sweat off in minutes and I looked terrible. So I didn't bother. So I haven't had to replenish a lot of my makeup yet because I did bring some stuff with me. But I'm also counting health here is not medical. I have them separately. So health in this case would be maybe over-the-counter medical things I might run into the pharmacy. I take an acid reflux medication that I get over the counter, and I take some iron tablets because my iron's on the lower side of normal. Those things I count as part of health and beauty, like supplements, stuff like that, and then makeup and moisturizer and things. My toiletries I count as part of my groceries. I don't have that separate. I do have a sinking fund for medical if I end up having to do anything more extreme than an over-the-counter. If I have a doctor's visit, something like that, I consider them kind of separate. Mist comb, I'm just putting 5 in. That's for anything I can't think of. I had to go buy a sewing kit the other day because I had a hole in my pocket. I bought some candles, which also probably could have come out of mist comb, but I realised this morning when I went to light it, I don't have a lighter. I don't have matches, but I usually get, you know, those little barbecue gas lighters so you don't have to get your fingers too close to the flame. And I realised I didn't have one, so when I go and get one at some point, that's the kind of thing it will come out of. I do have a budget for, it says eating out delivery, but it's not quite that, and that's going to be 25 a month. I made a deal with myself this year that I wasn't going to download any food delivery apps because I feel like I got lazy and over-reliant on them when I was in Saudi Arabia, and it just kind of encouraged me to eat more crap food. However, a few teachers here have spouses that run side businesses and they do cooking as a side business. So there's one gentleman here who's married to a Thai lady who does Thai curries and Thai dishes. And there's another guy who does home cooking. So he does stuff like shepherd's pie and he makes quiches and things like that. And so they post a little menu in the WhatsApp group every week and you can order. So I've just put 25 a month into that, so I can order once or twice a week from there, and that saves me having to buy my own groceries, because once you factor it in, this is one of those cases, because their portion will feed me for 2 or 3 meals. It's one of those cases where it may actually be cheaper just to order it, because they cook it at home here and they bring it to my door. So it's not like I'm paying for a restaurant overhead or anything, and it's nice to support them, so that works out. It's a good compromise for me, because I feel like it's kind of a healthier choice, and it's also supporting friends, but I don't have the app on my phone. I'm not tempted to order like McDonald's or donuts at 3 a.m, you know. I also have a random category for spending. Usually this is going to be about 20. It's slightly higher this month because it's somebody's birthday coming up and we are going to go out as a group and just have a meal together. This would usually come out of my eating out, but it's not a regular expense, so I just put it into spending as kind of a treat. So that brings us to 263 Omani Rial, and that's 353 total for the month for expenses locally. So now that we've done this, you can see at the top, or at least I'll put it up somewhere, that the send home has now calculated, and I'd be sending home 960. I've actually already done this. So let's go over to the other side of the spreadsheet, which is all the things I do with it when I send it home. So I had estimated that my income would translate, the stuff I sent home would translate to about 2,100. Extra income are things like YouTube Pay or anything extra I earn that isn't based in Oman. I don't calculate that when I'm making up the original budget usually, but because YouTube does ratify what you're getting paid in advance, I do know what's coming. So I'm going to put it into my actual income, even though I won't receive it probably until the 24th or so. They usually send payments on the 21st if you're American, but it can be between the 21st and the 26th if you're international, and I find mine tends to be towards the end of that period. So the actual money I got for my 960 Rial was 2,210, which was a very good exchange rate. That's one of the things about working abroad. It's not that you necessarily get paid that much more than you would have, but once you factor in, like you saw in my fixed bills, I didn't have rent. It's included in my contract. So once you factor in the fact that I don't pay income tax and I don't pay rent, and the exchange rate right now is really good for me because the British currency is quite weak, like you start to see the advantages, and I'm getting the most for my money right now. My income additional is going to be 361.59, and as I say, I don't usually factor that in until I see it, until I see the final numbers. And then we have all of these. So I have 3 accounts in the UK, which is why these are all different colors. The reason I do that is partly psychological and partly just the pain of experience. So I used to have one primary account for everything. But for me, when I have all my money sitting in an account that I also spend out of, I tend to erode whatever balance is in there with little purchases, and then suddenly I don't know where half my money's gone. So what I decided to do was to open up some different accounts and separate the money out, because essentially once it's no longer in my primary checking account in the UK, I consider it spent. It's gone towards something else. And psychologically that helps me a lot with my spending, because even if it's in another one of my accounts, in my head it counts as money I don't have anymore, you know? So the other part of the reason why I keep things separately is I've had experiences before with this primary account when it's been cut off for security concerns because I've tried to do a transaction from abroad. When I was in the middle of China trying to do a very important, rather large transaction that I had pre-called them about, they just decided to entirely close my account and cut it off until I turned up in person somewhere to prove who I was. And I was like, guys, I called you about this. What are you doing? Like, it was insane. So I like to have my money split between accounts. So if anything happens of that nature, if I'm traveling and my account is suddenly inaccessible, I still have other accounts available to me. And what I've done with these two accounts is the blue one, I have put for any subscriptions I have. So you can see there, I have Spotify, Nintendo Direct, YouTube, blah, blah. We'll go through it when I put the money in. And so any money that comes out regularly, monthly, I just send the total payment to there, and then I can leave it in there because they all come out on different dates. So I know those are all covered no matter what happens. The orange account here, I've got for my emergency fund and for any kind of medium to long-term savings like sinking funds. Money I don't want to touch without a reason, essentially. I still want to have, but I don't want to touch without a reason. So that's where all that money goes. And then anything left in my primary account is basically a bit of a buffer. And I know if an opportunity came up that I wanted to take advantage of, or something unexpected came up that I just didn't think about before, I would have a little bit of extra money in the primary checking that would just be safe to spend, essentially. And that gives me a little bit more flexibility. Like, you know, when you budget something and you're saving for it and then a sale comes up, and if you'd had the money, you could have bought it then and saved some money, and stuff like that. So having a little bit of extra just there, just in case, is safe to spend, is how I think about it, if it comes to it. But also, if I look at it, I think actually I'd like to put that into savings now, I can do that. So that's all the top one is. I do keep, because I want to keep a balance there, I do just have £50 in there that goes into a minor investment. Other spending, this is in the future where I'll probably put any extra income that doesn't get assigned, as I say, so I know it's safe to spend if I need to. I'm gonna leave it for now because it's only my second month here. Something might come up that I'm not expecting, so I don't want to assign anything just yet, and I'm going to leave it as a buffer in that account. Now we go into my fixed bills. Oh, that is actually 50 and has already been taken, so I will put that there. In my fixed bills, I have a few subscriptions. I don't have very many. I have Spotify, Nintendo Direct, YouTube, and Readly. Readly is a magazine subscription. I was trying out like 1 month on a few different streaming services, and then I just wasn't watching them enough to care. So I get a free subscription to a local one, OSN, here as part of my internet deal, and I just use that. So the Spotify, I round up to £10. That comes out on the 11th. The Nintendo Direct is just under 4, so again, we just round it up. I have a YouTuber I support, so that's just 3 for that membership. And my Readly is £9 because I got a £1 discount for getting it through my bank. So those, the cost isn't going to change, so I'm just going to put it as spent because I've already sent money to that account to cover those costs as and when the date comes. They're just direct debits I've got set up. I do have a savings account that I'm not contributing to this month. For reasons that I'll get into in a minute. And this is also the account I pay my pension from. And I'm just putting 300 in there for the moment, but I'm hoping to up that contribution a little bit later. I have a space here for national insurance as well. Basically, my national insurance is up to date because I've been paying it for the last few years. In the UK, you make contributions to national insurance to keep your state pension funded and to pay if you go to the NHS, things like that. It pays for a number of different services. So I make voluntary contributions to that because I'm living abroad. I don't have to contribute, but I feel like it's a good idea to keep your pension funded. And if I visit home at any point and need the NHS, I'd also like that to have funding. So there we go. But I didn't always used to do that because I didn't really think about that until my 30s. And in my 20s, I was like, oh, shit, I probably should have paid the national insurance when I was working abroad. So I've got these gaps in my record, and I would like to start filling in those gaps so that if later I want to retire early, or if later something happens and I'm just not earning as much or I'm not able to work, I would rather have less to go than more. So if I can afford to do it right now, better to pay it now and fill in those gaps, because I won't get into the massive detail of how it works, but you have a certain number of years in which you pay into that service, and if you pay over like 35 years, then your pension is fully funded. So I'm behind in number of fully funded years, and I'd like to fill in that short gap. Short gap, is that the word I'm thinking of? There's a gap in what I should have paid and what I haven't. Shortfall, sorry, was having trouble with the words. I'm not contributing to either of the savings for this account or the national insurance at the moment because of something I'm doing down here. In the orange here, we have the savings. I'm trying to build a small emergency fund. I've got, as you can see here, the balance right now, I've got 450 in there. And the idea is to contribute, I want at least 1,000 in there right now, and I want to get it up to probably around 5,000, just so I know I've got some money sitting there. But I'm paying a tax bill at the moment, so I'm not contributing to some of these other savings things as much because I'm paying my taxes, which I feel is a little bit more important. So I've just put 100 into my emergency fund this month. And my taxes, so these are taxes for the previous year. And what I did, I should have just but I should have just saved monthly when I was getting my payments in, because it's for stuff I earned, it's for YouTube from last year, stuff I earned in the UK. So you have to pay taxes on stuff you earn in the UK, even if you're working abroad. So I had my payments and I should have separated it out, but I was also working on paying off my credit cards, and my credit cards cost me more money than having my tax sit there. So I paid off my credit cards but didn't put money aside. Like, I paid the previous year's taxes because they were about £800, but the tax bill I've currently got, I looked at it and I said, okay, I'm due to finish paying my credit cards on this date. I then filed my taxes right after I got to Oman, so I'd know the final number with a few months' salary ahead of me before it was due, because it's due at the end of January. And so I've been paying out of my salary now just to cover that tax bill from the previous year. So I put 1,000 into that last month, and I'm putting 1,000 in. I have already put 1,000 in this month, which will take my balance to 2,000, which they will keep on account, and then when it's due, they'll just take it out. I owe a little bit more. My tax bill for the year I currently owe would be, I think it's 2,400, something like that. But then the UK government always also have something called payment on account, which is you estimate how much you're going to make the next year. And I looked at my YouTube earnings and I was like, okay, I think it's going to be about this much, minus obviously the deductions and things. And then they split it into two payments. Bit of a killer is the first payment is due the same time as your previous year, because this is only like the second year I've done it, so they didn't do that in my first year. I don't know if it's a new thing or if it was just new to me because I hadn't done it before. So in January, I owe my last year's taxes and I owe half of next year's on account, essentially. So the total will end up being about 24, 25, something like that. And then if I pay the other one early, I owe about another grand on top of this, because I owe about 700-800 for the next year's accounts, which I'll probably try and just pay early so I know it's done. But because they're not due, the second payment won't be due until, I think it's either the end of June or end of July, I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't have to pay quite so aggressively towards that. I can put 100 a month in and it's fine, because I don't have any other debts coming out now. And then I can put the 1,000 that I have been putting in for the last month or so, I can redistribute towards my other savings. I can increase my pension contributions, things like that. So it's just adjusting where that money is going. In the same account, I have some kind of medium-term savings in the form of sinking funds. So for travel, I'm putting in 300 and the aim is to keep putting in 300 every month. I'm just starting some of these sinking funds. For home and tech, I originally had this set up for a computer I was going to buy, but then I saw that the computer was on a really, really good deal and with a big discount, and I changed what I wanted. I thought I was going to need £2,000 for a laptop. I didn't end up doing that. I ended up buying like a £750 computer because of the discount. So I got a mini PC and it worked just as well for me, but it means that the reason I was saving in home and tech no longer exists, so I'm just keeping a smaller amount for general things. I might end up buying a capture card so that I can do streaming on YouTube and that kind of thing for maybe like video games and stuff. Stuff like that can all come out of home and tech. I also have a medical sinking fund. Now I do have medical insurance here, but it doesn't cover teeth or eyes. And I just want something there in case anything comes up and I need a bigger procedure, or I just need to pay a bill or what have you. Obviously, I will also have the emergency fund I'm building if it came to it, but I'd like something set aside just in case. I have sinking funds for Christmas and for gifts. Christmas, my family and I, the adults, don't buy each other presents, but we buy for the kids. I have a little brother and sister, and I have another sister that lives elsewhere. And so I tend to buy presents for them. When I was home a couple of years ago, I did buy presents for everyone because I was there, but so long as I'm not there, there's no real reason to. And so I just need a little in there building up. My gifts one is a weird number this month. It's 44 because I had 3 birthdays. I took the payment for the gift I bought my mom. My sister and I went halves on buying her a new computer, and that came out of last month. And then the twins had a birthday this month as well. So the 44 is just from their presents, but it means that the total for that is going to stay at 0 because I have now emptied what was in there. Oh, I forgot to put these totals in. So the running total I just do manually because every time I add something or take something out, I'm going to have to do a manual calculation, which is fine. It does what it needs to do. And then the clothing, I could put this into the Omani expenses, but I have my spending there of 20. So if I need something else, if I'm going to go on holiday and I need some vacation clothes, or something a little more expensive comes up, then I need to order it online particularly, then I might end up using this one, but it's good to know I have it in the background just in case, and I'll put that as 50 for the balance. And that brings me to the end of that. So I don't know why it's saying the rollover is so big. Oh, it's because I haven't filled in all of these, sorry. I know these are actual costs because I've already paid them. So I'm just gonna put in what I spent. All of these, not 30. Right, there we go. So all of these costs aren't changing. There's no reason to change them. Nothing has come up. You can see here I have a rollover of 560. That's because I haven't yet allocated the YouTube income. And when I get it, I'll decide what I'm going to do with it. I had a little bit of money I hadn't allocated yet because it was going just into the buffer in the primary account. But the 560, when everything comes in, I'll decide if I just want to finish off that tax bill or if I want to assign it maybe to travel. I'm debating going on a trip in December for the Christmas holiday, December, January, but I probably won't go home because we break up really, really late, and trying to travel on Christmas Eve is a nightmare. It's super expensive and it actually causes a lot of hassle with getting home. So I might end up doing a little local trip, but I don't have very many paychecks between now and Christmas. So if I'm serious about doing a trip over the Christmas holidays, which I'm not 100% sold on, I might wait, I need to build up the travel sinking fund a little bit quicker because I started it quite late in the year. So the money might go there, or I might increase my contributions elsewhere and just decide, okay, I'm maybe going to travel for my birthday in May. I'm turning 40 in May, so I'd like to do something to mark it. but I haven't decided if I want to go to a really expensive but beautiful hotel I saw in the mountains, or if I want to do a trip somewhere and then have a lot of spending money and just enjoy myself. So I'll see a bit closer to the time how I feel, but the money will contribute somewhere. Okay, everybody, I hope you found this interesting. I know it's a lot of numbers. I hope it all made sense. I find budgeting videos interesting, and with me working in 2 currencies, people who maybe are looking into working abroad might find it useful. So I will see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye, everybody.